On a cold Sunday morning, in the middle of a snow blizzard, a 15-year-old teenager makes his way to church. The church he's been going to ever since he was young. And yet somehow he finds himself lost, and he walks into another church, a small primitive church with maybe around only 10 to 20 members or so. And there's not even a preacher, but a layman comes to the pulpit to preach. And he says a simple message from the book of Isaiah, "Come unto me." And that message hits this teenager. Though he had called himself a Christian all his life, it was only at this moment that he really devoted his life to Christ. And do you know what happened from that point on? He went on to preach, and to become one of the greatest preachers ever to have lived. The Prince of Preachers, his name was Charles Spurgeon. I'll tell you another story. A 16-year-old teenager sent by his parents to go travel the world as a graduation gift. And yet on this journey, the Holy Spirit convicts him, and he realizes that this world is full of suffering, and many people out there in the nations need to hear the gospel, the word of Christ. And here he devotes his life wholly to Christ, to one day become a missionary to serve those who need the gospel of Christ. Where are these teenagers today? Where are they amongst you and amongst me? Where are they in our schools, in our society, in our communities? Today, to be a teenager, we are not expected to do much. Society looks upon us and thinks, well, they're meant to study, they're meant to go to school, and I guess apart from that, they're just there to have fun, to enjoy themselves, and maybe cause a little bit of mischief. To us, that seems about right. Whether we call ourselves Christians or not, we might go to church on Sundays, but for the rest of the time, our lives look like school, and I guess finding time apart from that to have fun with our friends, by ourselves, on our screens, on our social media, with all the entertainment that we have in this technological age. But that is not the kind of calling that God gives to us. As teenagers, God has a calling for us that is way bigger, way grander, way more joyful, way more fulfilling than any of these other things that we could have thought of. But this life is a radical life. It's a life that counts and is called to deny ourselves. We're called to bear our crosses, and we're called to follow Christ. It's a life of sacrifice, a life of devotion, a life of wholeheartedness. In the Bible, Paul says to Timothy, "Let no one despise you of your youth, but be an example to the believers." And moreover, in the Psalms it says, "How can a young man keep his way pure?" See, the Bible was for young people. It's for us. And this radical calling that, for example, Paul says, "For me to live is Christ and to die is gain," is not just a calling for old people. It's not just a calling for our parents. It's a calling for us, the youth, the teenagers, Gen Z, for you and for me. What does it mean to devote our lives? There are only two options. We can either devote our lives to the world, to ourselves, to our goals and our own ambitions, or we can devote our lives to Christ, to give a radical devotion to God's grand plan for our lives that is beyond our imagination, back to His plan, His design for our lives as teenagers and as people that He has created from now until the rest of our lives. So, who will you devote your life to?